Alright, kids, put down your fork knives, put down your fanoodles, and your gigabash-em-ups. Let me have your undivided attention for maybe 15-20 minutes.
ılıll.
The SH MonsterArts Godzilla -1 reissue figure will be standing over 6 inches tall. Not entirely over, but nearly 6.5 inches tall. That's cool. Before I get started, I do have to give out some love. First up, to Michael of the Articulation series. Thank you once again, my guy, for allowing me to purchase this ball-jointian sea urchin spike fest from you. And then I gotta give a shout out to my latest patron, Nathan. Thank you so much for coming to Shinrobs. You're a patron, fam. I really do appreciate it. Now, paint and detail-wise, I happen to find that this version of this figure is pretty damn good. To get up nice and close with this here figure, I really do want to showcase where it shines the most. I really do like and enjoy that heavy-handed dry brushing that plagued the original has definitely eased up a bit, especially around the tits. The lower torso over here feels like the details can finally breathe and showcase their chops. The way that the thighs and legs overall, including the crotch, were handled this go-around definitely feels like the brush was dancing along all the raised portions and not forced onto it. The feet, honestly, might have been perfectly fine with the original release looking at official materials and such, but I actually kind of prefer this. As far as the front of the figure goes, I feel the most iffy thing in terms of the paint job is going to be the shoulders and biceps. This side's a bit darker, this side's a bit brighter. That and homie's got a booger snot loogie on his pointer finger over here, versus over here where he doesn't. And whilst going under the detail-based umbrella that is consistency, I find the dorsal fins over here are probably the most inconsistent thing on this figure. Some of them feel like they were just barely touched by the paintbrush. Others feel like they were bathed in it, if at all. I mean, look at this guy. It's the return of the runic symbols from GXK Godzilla. And then again, you've got the proper skittering and dancing over the raised portions over here. And then you look at this guy, and it feels like it really didn't get hit at all. I'm gonna discuss that in length rather soon. That being said, the back of the figure leading into the tail looks really good. And the arms, despite pointing out an inconsistency with it, feel like they were properly dressed for the most part. Paint on the bottom, paint on the side, paint on the front. It definitely feels like Bandai were doing their best to cover most of the ground here. But then we get Gap. And when looking at the tail over here, when it comes to minus Goji, I feel like the most consistent thing about this guy is just how inconsistent the tail paint is handled, if at all. So I'm really none too bummed. Painted all the way to the tip, the detailing is fantastic. Once again, I mean, there's gonna be hints and glints of heavy-handed paint nature on this. There is. Some definitely more than others, but this is where I'm going to talk about it in full. That coloration of Godzilla's skin, be it scarring or just something that was placed on it so he's not flat grayish black, is something that feels consistently inconsistent across multiple different products. Save for the fact that it's there on things like the Ichiban, for example, or even the X+. It's present on all the figures, but it feels like it's really been taken different directions and different ways across all of them. You can even look at the officially made Godzilla -1 statue, which I think there might have been more than one, because looking at different pictures, it seems like the paint job varied from place to place, although it could just be lighting, it could be the way the photos were taken. I don't know. I'm not a professional. So case in point, am I upset that the overall paint job for his skin is inconsistent? No. Because every product I seem to look at of this guy differs. Nobody got it 100%, just like nobody got Shin Godzilla 100%. Not even X+ got Shin Godzilla 100%. So now let's discuss the most horrific part of this here figure in terms of paint application, that being the head. And for the most part, I feel the eyes look pretty damn good. It's nice to see that my eyes weren't printed on the side of the cheek or nothing like that. Yeah, this guy over here does feel like he's pointing down a bit more versus this one, but again, look at how fucking small these things are. Here's my pinky. That's hard to do for just about anybody. And then we're going to have the scar paint on his cheek and on his very angry, solid brow up here. And it differs from everything else, and I think it looks pretty good. The teeth have been a rather large point of contention for quite a lot of collectors out there. And listen, ayo, I friggin' get it. Some of the pictures I saw before getting my own copy were really, really rough. I have in fact decapitated Godzilla.
Take off his head.
So we can get a closer look at things. And yes, that upper row of teeth It's pretty clumpy, but they don't feel as crazily clumped up as I've seen some pictures showcase. And yeah, the teeth aren't exactly my favorite painted part of the figure, but for the most part, I'm actually kind of just okay with the teeth. I'm just glad that they're not as messier as some other copies that I've seen. And I really do like the color of the gums and the membranes and the tongue over here. Ample details going on in there. You can actually see the back of his throat, which is cool. There is honestly just so much ground to cover with this guy in terms of paint and detail. So much so that it almost feels impossible to fully cover everything in a digestible sort of way. The details truly are fantastic. I mean, some of the details on these dorsal fins are just insane. Here comes the pinky. Look at how small some of these damn things are in comparison to my smallest finger. I mean, seriously, look at how small this thing is. The fact that it's painted at all, has any color at all, has any detail at all is pretty magical. My overall consensus on this guy is, it's a hard thing to really nail down. And it feels like not any one company that's touched Godzilla -1 yet has really perfected it, and I don't know if they ever will. So, basically, I like it. I don't mind inconsistencies or some tiny, minute areas of heavy-handedness, because at the end of the day, the overall profile and everything that I can see on the front, the side, and the back of the figure, it all looks good. Plus, this guy's not Shin Godzilla, so I'm not going to be overly anal about it. And now, in regards to variant shots versus the figure that I took out of the box, they're the exact same figure. There's no switched at birth plot lines going on in this movie. It's not a movie, but yeah, Michael showed me these exact pictures, sent this exact figure over. There was no mystical paint changes during the shipping process. Honestly, all this is really doing is making me want to upgrade my setup even more because, wow, dude just catches the colors so much more than just having two lights on the front of them like I do, but that's here nor there. The figure looks great. The figure is awesome. Now we can compare the reissue to the original, and Jesus, there is quite a bit that differs. Obviously, the highlighting and the dry brushing that was put onto the figure is a lot less heavy-handed and a bit less vibrant. And I kind of do dig that because it feels like it has a natural flow more to it than the original does, and I understand natural flow on a giant irradiated death lizard is probably not, you get it? It is crazy just how, like, they toned it back. They made it a little bit more muted. It looks like they even changed the inside of the mouth paint for this. Again, it just has more of a natural flow. It feels and looks a lot better to me, at least. And seriously, that mouth paint definitely changed. Like, I'm not crazy, am I? I love the more toned back dry brushing. I love that it's distributed a lot more evenly. I have no notes. I am very happy I got the reissue. My God, wasn't that riveting? You can actually see the improvements made, and it's quite nice. I can't speak for anybody else's copy except for my own, but yeah. Shokugan, Monster, Movie, King, Action Figure, HG, Finger Poppers, SH MonsterArts. Whew, and now we can get into... I'm going to start with the tail first. The tail really hasn't given me much trouble. It's just that it does need a bit of steady coaxing. There are a few pieces that do like to pop off, but yeah, there you go, it popped off. But there is a bit of trial and error. A little bit of pressure with a little bit of movement, and Goji's tail over here is going to be curving like the best of them. Maybe not better than Shoshingeki Goji, but close enough. And I do believe we can even get the tail, fingers, skin, nerve endings, to even somewhat angle down. Wow, look at that. You'll never need to do that, but sheesh. That is actually just impressive, honestly. Good range of movement. It's just when moving it, sometimes just a little bit more pressure so nothing pops off. I mean, don't force it like I did just there. Yeah, it's mostly just this area and this area over here that like to pop off. But, you know, play it close. Play it close and you can get that curve. Thankfully, the tail just stays on. It's only when I try and get that deep curve where anything pops off. And now for the legs, they can rotate all the way around with no troubles. Both can move out very, very far and back in. Here is a full bend out and a full bend in. Bend out, bend in. and don't forget to swivel, all of which will lead to a bit of a pivot. It will need to include the knee, as the pivot at the ankle isn't too deep. It doesn't have a lot of space to move there, but a pivot is absolutely possible, even if it does look like you're bracing Godzilla's leg. There will be a bit of a swivel at the ankle over here, but it's kind of tight, and I don't want to push it. And that's after heat treatment. The foot can move up about that far, and then out about that far, which is nice. And as we all know by now, -1 is going to have ball-jointed toes, which will allow them to move up and down rather far, rather nicely. You can get them in nice and close to one another, or you can give them a nice spread. That doesn't even look good. But hey, for the first time ever in the MonsterArts line, you can give Godzilla raptor feet. Shout out Henry on Blue Sky for mentioning that and getting it stuck in my brain, likely unintentionally. And then we've got the ball joint in Godzilla's belly and then his titties, which are, when paired together, going to allow Godzilla to crunch forward and look down very, very far. I do believe both combined together will aid in Godzilla not only being able to turn slightly, but to actually bend left and bend right as a whole. And when looking at this guy, you really wouldn't expect that. Now, with this fully hunched, I am going to cover the biggest problem area I have with this figure, and honestly, my one serious complaint. This middle portion of the neck, it's too tight. So we're gonna get a ball joint up here, and then another ball joint down here. And okay, now you're just making me a liar. Thanks, Godzilla. All right. Rob's full of shit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Look at how far down Godzilla's looking at you. He disapproves of your takes on contemporary jazz metal fusion musics. Now, as far as getting that piece back up, that's where the trouble begins and the head comes off. I actually do normally try to get the head off and then just move the piece like this so the dorsal fins on that neck piece don't collide with the back and fly off. And again, that's my one main issue. It's something I haven't been able to really correct and or fix, and it kind of bums me out a bit. Mostly because of the impact it has at the swivel over here. It's rather limiting, unfortunately. Yeah, this piece is going to aid in movement, just not as much as I'd like. Moving on down from the next side, the arms can move up about that far. They can, of course, swivel all the way around. We're gonna get a nice little bicep swivel, just not too much in the lower areas. More so a swivel over here. And all together with the ball joints, the arms can bend out about that far. I mean, just look at that. That's kind of painful looking, actually. But they can move in to a rather natural deep bend. Here's a better look at that swivel from the front over here. Very, very nice. And then we're going to get a swivel at the wrist. Up and down, side to side, side to side. Open and close, open and close. And finally, absolutely lovely and painful on the fingertips. So let's check out just what this guy can do with all those ball joints. So in terms of posability, is this a take? I don't know, you tell me. I think this figure does the MonsterArts norm, the MonsterArts standard, very, very well. The addition of posable toes was originally something I didn't think I'd need, and then I ended up getting this guy into poses that I wouldn't have been able to get him into unless he had ball-jointed toes. So if future designs call for posable toes, I hope it's something that Bandai considers. Because yeah, that kind of upped this guy's worth when it comes to posability. And it's kind of cool that we're going to be seeing something like that with Hayatoys and their Shimo, hopefully pretty soon. I love that I can pair him with other heat ray effects that I have. I love that I can pair him with the airplane parts from the 54 70th anniversary version. And honestly, I really don't have any nitpicks about this guy, save for the neck being a little too tight. Originally, I thought this tail could have moved better, but then I remembered ball joints. Move them. Don't be off-put by stiffness. Add a little heat. Bon swing. This figure is awesome. And even though it came out technically last year, or did it come out this year? Regardless of when it came out, I think this guy's hitting my favorite figures of 2025 list. The neck joint tolerance issue aside, and the inconsistent paint job that I really don't care about, this is definitely going to end up as one of my favorite figures of 2025. I've been ShinRobJira. I do so hope you all enjoyed. I'm sorry this took so long, but I wanted to get my head on right with this release. I wanted a review and an opinion that is irrevocably me, and I think I did a decent enough job. What do you think? Comment down below. Tell me. And be sure to check out all my social media while you're down there in the description. And when next we meet, hopefully, HLJ Bandai, don't you dare, I can finally release some Trendmasters videos that have been sitting in the unlisted and unreleased folder of my YouTube channel since fucking October and November. So until then, peace.